Hello, my name is Chhavi Sachdev. I am a podcaster, a producer, and an independent radio journalist based in Mumbai, India. I have had migraines since I was 7. I have acute migraines, and I think I could call myself lucky or unlucky that I was born into a family of migraineurs. So I didn't have a clinical diagnosis, but when I was 7 years old, my mother recognized that this intense throbbing pain and the accompanying nausea was not just any headache. She has migraines, her sisters have migraines, and her father had migraines. So she recognized it and was able to help treat it, having seen and been around so many people who basically would just retreat into a dark room with an ice pack, maybe some head massage, and a lot of trips to the bathroom to throw up. So that's how I was diagnosed. She diagnosed me. And I have never actually had a clinical diagnosis because I've always presented to doctors that this is what happens and it meets every criteria that I've ever come across. I've had migraines since I was 7, so that's pretty much all my life. So my migraines are triggered hormonally as well as through food triggers, as well as strong scents, bright lights, lots of sunshine, dehydration, and mostly a drop in blood sugar, which I have only recently sort of triangulated and figured that it's when my blood sugar drops. I have sort of borderline hypoglycemia. It's a huge trigger for migraines. How do I deal with migraine on a daily basis? I try not to have them, as if it were that simple, right? If only it were that simple. So I try to be vigilant about my triggers, and sometimes it is a hard thing to feel like you have no control. And I think I've gotten better though about figuring out most of them and trying to avoid them. There are absolutely cases when I have a migraine and I'm casting around to figure out why, and I don't usually have an answer. But they have become fewer, and besides becoming less frequent, also shorter in duration in the last few years, because I think I've been quite vigilant and aware of a few of the major factors. So the gut-brain axis was not something I had a lot of information about, perhaps nobody did. And having educated myself and done things to find mitigation as well as awareness raising tools for me, I think has really, really helped. So for instance, I have been lactose intolerant my whole life. Again, in India, this is neither commonly discussed nor commonly known. In fact, many doctors I've met know less about even that than I do. I find that's the case with migraines all the time anyway, but even lactose intolerance is hardly understood, even though so many of us have it here. So in America, where I lived for 12 years, I found that lactase enzymes did help counteract the lactose that I was consuming. But whether it's the fact that I'm now in India and the dairy is different, or that I have just gotten older and my digestion has changed, I'm not really sure, but I know that lactase enzymes do not work very well for me anymore. And the only thing that actually works is to eliminate the dairy products completely. In India, where I grew up and where I live now, lactose intolerance is very prevalent, and yet a lot of people, including doctors, do not know about it or just treat it like as if it's in your head. So migraines are a whole different level. I usually know more than my doctors about treating many of these things, definitely migraines. And well-meaning as they are, they're usually not very helpful. I have learned more from places like the Migraine World Summit and Migraine Again, and these apps and tools out there, online communities and resources to educate myself and then advocate for myself. Another thing that's also helped is giving up sugar. I learned about the academic research about sugar and hypoglycemia and blood sugar levels and spikes and drops through, again, online resources. And it's been life-changing. I tapered off from refined sugar back at the end of 2016. I started 2017, January 1st, refined sugar-free. The way it's worked out is that once I gave up refined sugar, I actually lost the taste for all sweet things. I had thought I would continue eating honey and jaggery sweetened products or cookies or make them myself, but I just can't tolerate them anymore. And it's been so beneficial. So again, I recommend reading up on that. It's been really beneficial to me. Also, I travel a lot for work. I'm a journalist, and I sometimes am on the road or in a place that has no safe or hygienic lunch or evening time stop point where I can get a nutritious meal that also matches my dietary restrictions. And so I have learned to carry a Ziploc with snacks that suit me, that will also have fiber or fat that will tide me over until I can stop for a decent meal. I always carry water with me. I have the funniest hat, but it works for me. It's got a visor and a piece of cloth that drapes around the back of my neck. I'm definitely a high visibility object to ridicule sometimes, but I don't care. I'd just rather not get a migraine. And I try to sleep on time. I try to avoid devices and screens, not always successfully, I admit. But on my screens, I have put app locks, so I'm not tempted to continue scrolling forever or shop online late at night. And I also have the same app allows me to dim the screen. It goes black and white. Nothing even looks very attractive at that point. And this has been very, very helpful. To unlock it, I have to pay the developer a fine, and I have not once actually been tempted enough to break that the lock. When I have a migraine attack, it lasts for about 3 days. Recently, it's been shorter, so 2 days, but it's no fun. I also then have a recovery time. So for instance, if I've had to cancel a social engagement, I cannot just plan it for the day that my nausea recedes or my pain stops, because my gut takes 2 days before I can eat anything besides a really thin soup or lentils, very runny, and perhaps fruit, and that's it. So it has affected my social life, it has affected my work. There have been days when I am totally unable to even respond and let people know I am sick. I have very, very bad nausea and pain. Life has been better since I discovered triptans, again, through word of mouth, not through a doctor. And the severity and duration has reduced, but they're not a miracle drug for me. And the other new medicines are nowhere near the horizon for India. And if I get them from the US, I don't have insurance and I can't afford it. So triptans and gut stuff really helps. So again, research I've done on my own. Has led me to my own cocktail of drugs that I take for pain relief and getting through a migraine episode, and making connections with people who have recommendations or similar trajectories has been really helpful. For instance, I did not know that other people have gastroparesis, so that's actually a thing that happens in migraine. And nobody here, no doctor could explain it to me. In fact, my doctor has made me so sick by insisting that I eat. And one time I followed her advice and she said, you have to eat. You can't go like 36 hours, and sometimes it's more. Sometimes it's 4 days without any food and perhaps a sip of water on my 3rd day. And she was concerned I'd get sick. So she insisted the next time I have an attack to try to eat cookies and biscuits. Oh my goodness, it just prolonged the attack by 3 more days. And I realized I cannot listen to people who are not actually experts. And at this point, I just know more than they do, however well-meaning they are. So I've done a lot of trial and error learning, but communities have been the best resource that I've found, and connecting me to experts whose lectures and papers and notes I can find has been really, really good. I get so many newsletters. I have apps on my phone, including N1 Cure Later, and they're really, really helpful. If you're a migrainer, I would recommend being proactive, because I find that helps me. I feel less out of control. There are migraines that I can't ascertain why I've got them, and it's a wretched feeling to feel so helpless that you just have no idea when it's going to come or what it's going to do and how long it's going to lay you out for. But keeping track and talking to other people to find that you fit in, you're not alone, is so, so helpful. When I found out online that osmophobia, that the horror of smells is a common phenomenon, it blew my mind. You know, when I have a migraine attack, there was a homeopathic doctor. I don't endorse that at all for myself or other people anymore, that I went to see, who insisted that I travel to her across the city during a migraine attack so she could observe and talk to me. It was torture. And I got there in a taxi and I told her, I can smell what you had for breakfast. I can smell the petrol in other people's cars when I travel here. Like, I can't explain to you how sick I'm feeling, because all the smells are such an assault. I really need to be at home in my own controlled environment. And she had never heard of this before. Most people have not. And then I found that I'm not alone. And it was so helpful. And it made a huge difference to my mental peace and mental health, that you feel less isolated and that it's a known thing. And if there are more people out there with this, then hopefully somewhere along the way a cure will happen or an intervention. The other thing I really have become quite an advocate of is monitoring your sugar and seeing if that affects your migraines. I did not go cold turkey, and I've observed that with myself and other people, that you can't just stop. I mean, we're addicted. And I gradually decreased my sugar intake, and then over 3 months, like what I was consuming in terms of dessert and in my tea and coffee, cutting down until finally I could eliminate it, and it has been life-altering. I also got a food intolerance test done earlier this year, and eliminating those triggers, which have changed over time, has also been massively helpful. I have been migraine-free since that test and since I just went cold turkey on those things. For example, wheat showed up on my intolerance list very high. And the last time I got checked, it was nowhere on the radar at all. And having given it up, because thankfully we are in a time and place where there are many alternatives, has been so helpful for just how I feel, and also the benefit of not having had a migraine since that. There are many others as well, sadly, but I have been really, really strict, and I feel like the payoff is so worth it that it's not a big deal to give up those things. So, explore dietary options, figure out maybe if you are intolerant of certain foods, if your gut-brain axis is as linked as I found mine to be. And track stuff. I think it helps me feel more in control of what's happening, and also, of course, finding patterns makes it easier to then address them.